How do I start homesteading? This is a question most people ask before they get started because of course you have to have the answer. A lot of folks think it's buying cheap land, knowing how to farm and garden and all these things. That's not the answer. You've got to be prepared up here before you can do anything out here. You start homesteading and you start living a free life and being happy, joyous, and free by first escaping the matrix soul trap. My wife didn't want me to make this video. I've wanted to make it for months. Basically, I'm going to share some personal experiences with you to kind of give you an idea of what I mean, and you'll fully understand as you listen to this, especially if you're in America, you grew up in America, and you're watching this in America and you have an American mindset, okay? Now, why I make this video, I'm going to prune my weeping willow. It's starting to bud and leaf out, and if you want a perfectly formed, majestic tree of maturity, you've got to prune it as it grows or you'll never get that, okay? Now, as an American, and I love America, and if you watch the videos, you've heard me allude to the fact before that I'm a combat veteran. I fought in Iraq, and I would fight again if my country needed me. Don't think I'm anti-American because of what I'm going to say. I'm very pro-American. It's just the mindset of a lot of Americans that sometimes gets to me, and it's mostly, it deals with fear, okay? So I was raised in America, lived in America my whole life until I deployed, after which I traveled overseas quite a bit as a civilian, and I've shared with you before that I lived in the Philippines for 6 years. My wife, who's recording this, is Filipina. Okay, so as an American in America, I was terrified, scared to death of getting this brain-eating amoeba that was going to kill me unless if I had this specific form of health insurance, because it would only if I had that would they accept me for admittance in any healthcare facility in this country and treat my brain-eating amoeba so that I would live to watch my children grow. And without that insurance, if I had to self-pay, I would have to spend the millions and millions of dollars I'd accumulated in my life doing middle-class jobs, okay? And this huge multi-million-dollar inheritance my children would receive would be gone because they didn't have this health insurance, right? That's what we're led to believe, okay? So I'm in the Philippines, and I was there I was within my first year, and I came down with the worst case of food poisoning I've ever had in my life. I lost 16 pounds in 3 days. I couldn't eat, I couldn't retain liquid. And when my urine started turning brown, I knew I had to do something. I went to the hospital. Why did I wait 3 days to go to the hospital? Because my American mind said, oh my God, I don't have health insurance. They're not going to treat me. But if they do treat me, it'll be thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars, okay? So I finally crawl out of my boarding house room, hail a cab, beg this guy not to charge me 3 times the price because I was a white foreigner in Southeast Asia, because I'm so sick I'm going to die and I don't know if I'm going to have the money to. So he was a good guy. He said, no, it's okay, I won't do that. I'll treat you right. And he did. Took me to the hospital. I went in. They treat me. They took blood samples, stool samples, find out what was going on with me. I was in there all day. They fixed me up, gave me medicines, all these things. I saw 2 different doctors, all these different nurse practitioners. Here comes the bill at the end of it. It was in pesos, but to translate into or convert to US dollars, it was $32. I was shocked. $32. This is all? I thought I was supposed to sign away my next born child for this health care treatment because I didn't have insurance. You should stop this video, no? This sucks. Okay, so that was the first example. The second example, 3 years later, I get bit by this mosquito and I get what's called dengue fever. It's like malaria's evil first cousin. They used to have it in the US, it was eradicated, but the government reintroduced it to Florida a couple of years ago to make sure it's gone or something like that. Through mosquitoes that can't breed. It's crazy what they do with their GMOs and their hybrids and all these things. But by the way, I'm just cutting the dead spurs off of my willow here. So anyway, I get dengue fever and bronchitis on top of this while I'm in the Philippines. I have little to no money. We're living off of like whatever grew in our yard or the jungle, which was quite a bit, and fish I would get free by helping the fishermen pull their boats in the mornings, and rice, which a lot of times we borrowed. We didn't give it back. We bought it on credit. We were very down and out. So I go to the hospital. I'm afraid to go to the hospital, but I know I'm going to die if I don't. Over 1,000 people per year die on the island of Mindanao, which is where I lived in the southern Philippines. So I go to the hospital, I'm admitted, I stay 2 nights, 3 days, they treat me, they cure me, they save my life. I get the bill, 12,000 pesos, which at the time was about $300. $300 to treat me, okay? So my doctor, beautiful Filipino woman who went to medical school in the United States, explained to me, you know, sir, I went to your country to get my education because you have the best education in the world, but I came back to my country to practice medicine because I wanted to be a doctor, because I wanted to help sick people. And I can do that here. I can't do it in your country because of the crazy system you have. She mentioned the percentage of her paycheck that would have to go to malpractice insurance, to, you know, because everybody wants to sue everybody over here when something doesn't go their way. Now, none of this is meant to be political. What I'm talking about here is showing you the fear we have as Americans that more important than clean drinking water, shelter, and food for our bodies is this health insurance, because the inevitable brain-eating amoeba is going to attack us, and it's going to happen. It's not going to happen, folks. Now, why do I bring this up? Why am I telling you these stories, and what does this have to do with how do you start homesteading? A couple of days ago, I was in town. I go in town every now and then to see how the people dress these days and what they're talking about and all this stuff. Sometimes I think I went too long without speaking English. Kesabot ko Visayan, Ichaka Historico Visayan Salute sa Philippines means I spoke Visayan mostly in the Philippines, and I went for a long time without even speaking English. Sometimes I think I forgot the language when I hear what these crazy people in town are talking about. But I met a wonderful couple who were walking their dogs. They were 40-ish, about my age. Very fit, very trim, healthy. Their dogs probably cost more than my car. And but I enjoyed talking with them, and we were just kind of small talking, getting to know each other a little bit. And they asked me what I did, and I told them, which I've never told you guys. You might wonder, how do we live like this? I haven't told you because, well, I just haven't. I'm a writer, okay? I write. And this channel is not about pushing my books or things I write, publications I write for. It's about homesteading, gardening, growing and raising your own food, survivalism. So that's why I've never mentioned that. So I shared that with those people. And success through that is how we were able to finally leave the Philippines and come here and buy this place. It did really well there for a number of years. So anyway, they opened up with me that they were teachers. And I'm not knocking on teachers. I have a lot of respect for teachers. I have a lot of respect for anybody who works with young people and helps prepare them for the future, okay? But the girl, the woman, mentioned that she had this great idea for a book. She's had it for many, many years, and she just wants to write it. And I told her, well, why? I asked her, why haven't you started? I mean, just write it. And she goes, oh, well, I'm so busy with this and with teaching. And then the guy started talking about how much he hates his job. And I'm like, why don't you guys quit? Now, here's the point of my story, okay? They looked panic-stricken and shocked when I said that. Why don't you just quit? They looked at me like I had 3 heads. And I said, well, come on, you just told me you don't really like what you're doing. I looked at her, I said, you've had this great idea for a book for years and you haven't even written the first sentence. Isn't it obvious? And they couldn't speak for a minute. And they said, well, we can't quit. And I was like, why not? And she said, well, we only have about 1 year's worth of income in savings. I'm like, wow, a year's worth of income in savings? So you're telling me you couldn't find something else you would like to enjoy, you would like to do or would enjoy doing in the course of a year? Or you couldn't knock out a first draft of that book in 6 months and then maybe take a sabbatical? And then but we have excellent health insurance. We can't lose our health. Oh. And it's like, God, I can't imagine what some people pay for health insurance. Okay, you know what we pay? 0. Why? Because I don't have it. And I know a lot of you are going to say I'm irresponsible, but listen, when I came back to the U.S., there were certain strengths I gained from living in the Philippines that I don't want to lose here, and I don't want to become soft again in many ways. That's why, despite being able to hire people to do a lot of my manual labor for me, I'm out here doing it myself. I enjoy doing it, and I don't want to become soft. Okay, so we've been back 2 years. My wife got a really bad case of poison ivy last year because they don't have poison ivy in the Philippines. Her immune system had no defense against it. We had to take her to the doctor. We go to the doctor. She gets a steroidal injection. And then the doctor says, you need this antibiotic so that your body can fight this. And we're like, okay, we're not huge on antibiotics, but we're not against them if they're absolutely necessary. And in this case, it was. My wife was really swollen. The doctor, or the nurse practitioner says, now, since you can't afford health insurance, I'm going to give you the generic brand. Okay, at first I was slightly offended because I was thinking, woman, I make way more money in 1 year than you probably do in 3 to 5, but I didn't say that because that's just not nice to say. And I viewed it as an opportunity for growth. So I said to her, or to obtain knowledge, I said, ma'am, how will this work differently since we don't have health insurance price-wise? So she's writing out this script and she's saying something about how it would be $222 for the name brand, but she's friends with the generic supplier, and so it's only going to cost us $22 since we can't afford health insurance. She's shaking her head like this, well, you know the type, you've seen them. So with the steroidal injection, the prescription antibiotics and all this stuff, we left the doctor's office, we paid $78. That's the only health needs we've had in the last 2 years, $78. We don't drink, we don't smoke, even though I seem crazy. I don't do drugs. It's not anything pertaining to drugs. We eat healthy. We avoid GMO stuff. We don't eat a bunch of junk food. No tobacco products. I don't even chew. I used to, but I quit. It was something I picked up in the Army. I don't do that anymore. So if we were paying for health insurance, we'd be paying about $600 a month. Okay, that's $7,200 a year. So over the last 2 years, that would have been $14,400. We have used $72 or $78 worth of health care since we've been in this country. How does that make sense? That is insanity. And folks, that's the matrix. I mean, my wife didn't want me talking about this because it sounds conspiratorial. But if that is not a system of a matrix where people are put on strings and their minds are controlled and played by a system controlled through fear to live the way the system wants them to live, then I don't know what is. So how do you start homesteading? It's not about finding the perfect piece of land for cheap. It's not about knowing how to grow corn or raise a cow. It's about freeing your mind. Stop being scared of the boogeyman. I met this wonderful couple that I talked about earlier. This woman might have the book of the century in her head, and her husband alluded to the fact that he's miserable every day when he goes to work because he doesn't enjoy what he's doing. But because they're afraid of contracting this brain-eating amoeba and not having the $2.6 million it's going to cost to get it treated if they do, they live like prisoners. And they've created their own prison. And it's not just these two individuals I met, and they're good people. I'm not trying to say they were not good people. They seemed like really wonderful people. I enjoyed talking to them. But folks, are you living the way you want to live? Are you happy? Would you like to change the way you live? And when would now be a good time to do that? You say, oh, someday I'm going to do this, or someday I'm going to do that. When would now be a good time to just do that? Now is always the best time to do everything. Okay, you cannot live in fear and be happy. It's just not possible. So how do you start homesteading? How do you find a different job, get away from the one you don't like and do something you do like? You stop being scared. Stop believing the lies of the system. You're going to be okay. And you can walk into almost any medical facility in this country without health insurance, without money, and say, I'm sick, treat me. Guess what? They have to do it. There might be some difficult financial repercussions as a result later with billing, but you know what? Deal with that when you get the bill and make it happen. If you get sick and you die in America, it's because you're stupid, not because you don't have health insurance. Okay, if you learned anything from this and you don't think I'm too crazy to follow, please subscribe to our channel. There's a lot more where this came from. Thanks for watching this video from Homesteading Off the Grid.